Well, Becca, this is a very special episode of the Info Dump. It's just me and you. And I want to let people know that this was your idea. So if people love it, then they should give you, Becca, all the credit. And if
Yeah.
they and if they don't like it, I wasn't able to hold up my end to make it interesting enough.
I think that is untrue. I think people like when we do these things. I like these episodes. So what we're intending to do is to kind of recap our little year on Info Dump. So we have started out all gung-ho, 2 episodes a month. We got this, right? And then reality set in for Becca, who always thinks she can do more than she can. And we went down to 1 episode a month. But I still get really good feedback on it. And I hear people who just enjoy the conversations of it. And that's what I love. So I'm kind of excited to reflect upon the year with you.
Yeah, it was, I'm not very good on reflection, so this is probably a good healthy thing for me. I'm just kind of moving forward, and that's not always the best thing to do. So it gave me a chance to kind of just go back and just like think about who were our past guests in the
Who was
last year.
here? Who did we talk to? Who was
Who did
that?
we talk to? So there, looking back at the last year, I love every episode for different reasons. So it's always hard for me to pick a favorite, but kind of the first one that jumped out to me was Bridget Rankowski, just
Mhm.
because I felt like the essence of what this podcast is was
Yes.
I think was really captured by Bridget by her enthusiasm of all of her interests.
Right. And it was exactly how we want to capture special interest. Because as we went on, she got more excited and more into what she was, the freedom that comes with knowing you're in a safe space to talk about your special interest in that info dumpy way is really fun for us. You only get that if you meet someone else with a similar special interest, right? And then you can kind of do that forever. I love that episode. Bridget is one of my personal heroes about a lot of things. I think she takes risks and courage and has courage with like her physical appearance in a way that I wish I had that kind of freedom about myself. I know I struggle about that's probably the biggest struggle for me as a human being. I think these days I've worked on all these hard inner things, but that outer thing is something I still struggle with feeling good about. And so that was a really good episode for me as well. I enjoyed that one.
Were there ones that just stick out to you, like just thinking about it right now?
Well, that's the whole thing. My brain holds on to the ones that I think are most interesting, and all of everything else kind of just fades into the background of like, yeah, no, that was good, like of that general vanilla thing. So for me, first of all, I know that Chris was our first guest, but Chris Bonello is easily one of my favorite people. His sense of humor is my sense of humor. Whatever it is. And so I was so excited to have him on as our first guest because I thought, yes, this is exactly the impression I want the first episode to make. I want it to be fun. I want it to be about us being ourselves. And I know that Chris is somebody who does that. And so I was thrilled that he was our first guest. I loved having him.
Yeah. And kind of for me along those lines, like what I want this podcast to be about are people to talk about interests that might not be typically talked about, specifically on an autistic podcast. So I think there were two that came to mind for me were Aaron Orsini and Brianna Hartman, where Brianna was talking about marijuana and Aaron was talking about psychedelics, and it was really interesting just to learn more about both of those things.
Right. I mean, Aaron is still one of my favorite guests because he got my brain going, and I think that's where the NT versus ND brain differ. Like I think if somebody gets my brain going talking about something that I'm excited to talk about, or I want to know more about, or I think it's so cool that they know this thing, whatever, I just want to know more of them. And so I will say, like a little nerdy geek girl that I am, I went and I bought both his books after we talked to Aaron, because I was really interested in exploring kind of what he was talking about. And we're really seeing kind of psychedelics coming into the picture of mental health now in a very serious way, right? And I think that it benefits us to talk about what that looks like for autistic people, right?
Well, that's very cool. I wasn't aware that you got his books,
World, I did.
and now I'll probably be bugging you through email, like your thoughts on them as you get through those books.
I will definitely share it with you because it was interesting for me because the universe does its thing that it plopped Aaron in, and he's not somebody I found. He came to you, right, or you found him, and I'd never really heard of him before. And what was interesting to me is that right before kind of me having him on, I had already been sort of exploring the idea of psychedelics in place of antidepressants. Because I've been on them for a very long time. Occasionally, they are the kind of thing that stops working well and you have to change brands or change kinds and things like that. And there are side effects to it that I don't particularly enjoy. And so it was something I was exploring. And then he came on and I was like, oh God, now I'm in a new special interest land. This is terrible. Like, this is awful.
Well, one of our guests this year that episode was due to there was some technical difficulties and you were not able to participate, but I really enjoyed talking with Sienna Castellón. I think that's how I pronounce her last name, probably butchered it. But anyway, I always enjoy talking to like people of the younger generation, just to kind of, to hear their thoughts and feelings. And it seems like so often, not always the case, but so many times, like, teenagers or those in their early 20s in college, like their self-advocacy kind of blows me away and where they are at in this stage of their life.
Absolutely, 100%. And like, well, we had guests on that do that we just had Barb on recently, Barb Cook, and she's somebody for me. There are people in my life, like in my bubble, for whom I still kind of can't believe that they're in my circle, right? Kind of thing. And so Barb for me is one of those people. I think she does such amazing work. Her and Yen, to me, I met them sort of at the same time. So they sit in my brain together all the time because they're both from Australia and I met them at the same time. So both of those episodes for me were like, yeah, these are people that have been doing it a really long time. And look at how, before they were really aware of their diagnosis, how important their special interests were to them. Both of them,
Yeah, and then, we get to talk to Barb about motorcycles, which I always like talking about things that I'm scared of. So that was definitely fun to, I'm just so fascinated about when people have an interest in something that I'm just really scared of and how their brain works differently, or they're just able to kind of conquer things that I'm not able to.
I have a similar thing. It's like envy of their skill set, right? Like envy of their ability. I definitely understand that. I also I'm just not coordinated. Doug, we have that in common. I know you always feel like you're out there I am uncoordinated. I don't dance. I'm lucky I can walk my dog and not face plant. Like that's my life. And so when I see people like that who are good at things that have to do with their physical body, I'm always just envious all the time. I'm like totally envious. Someone who can paint really detailed and has nice fine motor coordination. I'm like, look at you go, because I can't do that.
Yeah, like don't your hands hurt after like painting? Like, I don't know, my hands hurt. Like just grab a pen and write. And it is like I'm in pain all day. So
right, exactly. So it's just so interesting. I'm trying to think. I cannot remember this girl's name, and I feel terrible that I can't remember her name. But I know it's because it was like a tag name, but I think she was from Norway or something, and she did the dancing. She did the joy dancing.
Yes, it was the stim dancing. Yeah,
stim dancing. Thank you. She is somebody who too I envy, right? That she gave herself that freedom in her physical body to just kind of and just do it. And again, still, I'm not comfortable enough with my physical body to do that.
It's funny you bring that episode up, because I've been thinking about that, like just even when I'm at different points in my life where I'm that happy, or in that moment where I could possibly think about stim dancing.
Think about it. I could think about it. I could picture it in my head. I'm going back to look at her name because it's gonna make me crazy. Naomi Johnson, was it? Yes. Naomi? Yes. Okay. Yes. Naomi, I'm sorry we forgot your name.
Yes.
And I think it's because you say it differently than we say it in America. And I remember not like trying really hard to concentrate on saying her name correctly the way she says it and not the way that I say it. So I apologize for saying it wrong now, because I know I just did. And so, but she was great. And it was like those moments where I'm like, but look at the pure joy, and even the pure joy that comes with explaining the joy that she gets from it, right? I mean, that was a lot of the behind of looking at people's special interests, and wanting to do that was to let people see what we look like when we really are ourselves, which is usually when we're in joy mode, you know, which has been really fun to kind of experience that with people. Yeah, now I want to go back and look at the whole list, because I feel like I'm forgetting people. That's terrible.
Well, one person that I was thinking about recently was the episode we did with Harry Thompson, because we were having, you know,
oh my God, you're right.
Yeah, like a lot of people think of Harry and, you know, PDA, and he's, you know, very, very knowledgeable about that. And we were having a great discussion about that. And then all of a sudden, you know, he started talking about Freddie Mercury, which was super interesting to me, because a lot of times I think people, when people are talking about their special or focused interests, people are talking about a topic, but not actually a specific person. So that was
right. And yeah, okay, so now here's the thing that I have is that, you know, I now, whenever I think of Harry, I think of Freddie Mercury. I no longer think about PDA when I think about him. I immediately think about Freddie Mercury. And I remembered after his episode that I had really enjoyed the Queen movie that came out, and I had enjoyed it unrelated. But then I watched it again after we met with him, and I was reading a little bit more about Freddie Mercury and sort of the end of his life, because I was like, I get now why Harry's so interested in him, and I want to re-experience that topic like through his eyes. Like, well, I get why you think I get it. I get all of it now. I get it. I totally do. And it was so interesting for me to have that shared joy for a second. Like, that's something that I talk about a lot, is sharing joy, because when we talk about the things that we love, the people that truly care about us experience joy watching us be joyful, right?
Yeah.
And so I love that. Like, I loved watching him talk about Freddie Mercury so much that I had to go watch the movie again, right? Because I was like, I get it now, man. I see it, you know. And like, it was really fun for us to have him on. It really ended up being truly, again, what we want this podcast to be. We know your autism work, blah blah blah, but like, let's talk for real.
Yeah. Since then, whenever I see Harry's posts on social media about PDA, I'm like, yeah, that's really cool. That's really relevant and important information. But why don't you post something more about Freddie Mercury?
Right. Can I get a fact? Can I get a Freddie Mercury fact, please?
Yeah, something.
It's a funny thing to be that way. It's really interesting. Oh, which makes me think of Michael McCreary, who we also had on. Another fun guest that we had on, who again spoke honestly about the things that he's interested in and what, you know, he's looking to do in life and where kind of his advocacy sits. He was a fun person to have on.
Absolutely.
We had a good year this year. Now that I'm glad we're doing reflection. It's like the reason that I do gratitude every week, to remember all the good fun that we had along the way.
Yeah, it just makes you feel better, right? Like, just thinking about all these wonderful conversations we got the privilege to have.
We did, and we got to meet a lot of fun people, a lot of interesting people, and I know what's coming up, and I'm really excited for the next few months, because when Doug and I sat down to do this, it was originally a book, you guys, which we ixnayed, because who has that time? And so, but our lazy selves did this instead. And I have loved meeting the people that you find, or that find us, that I don't know. Like, I've never heard, and like, I want to hear your special interests. And the other thing that I've really loved, and that we're trying to do more of in the year coming up, is looking for people with really varied, really specific special interests that either have like come in to be their career, or are just a really big part of their life, right? It's like, I really enjoy seeing the people like Bridget, who have really given in to their special interests, who have really said, no, it's a big part of my life. These are what I love, and I'm making it a priority in my life. So we're going to be doing a lot more of that stuff, I think.
And I think also we're going to be doing more, hopefully a lot more, of talking to people whose special interests are sometimes taboo, and it's
Yes.
not a lot, talked about a lot.
We are going to scare you, Doug. That's our goal for the next year. We're going to have all the people on that scare you. And that's what we're going to do. I'll throw some sports people in there so you don't get bored. So but I like talking to the taboo people, because I think so many of I don't know, autistic behaviors, autistic choices, all of those things are taboo, right? Like, we're always told our interests are for people that are younger for us, and we don't grow out like, and it's like, well, that's taboo too, but that's an interest, and that's what happens to us in the spectrum. And to not give ourselves the joy or to see the possibilities in our special interests is really like a failure to people. It's really a big failure that we've kind of placed upon people. So I'm looking forward to those. If you are a taboo person while we're doing this, hey, taboo autistic people out there, if you are openly autistic and comfortable talking about it, you have a taboo special interest, or you do something taboo for a living, or it's just really, really specific and rare and something people have not heard of, but it is your love. We want to share that joy with you. So please reach out. I'll use my email, info@beccalaurie.com. You can go ahead and email me. You can go onto the Autism Personal Coach website and contact Doug through there, and just kind of reach out to us. You can reach out through social media. We want to hear from you. I don't care if you're not an advocate for a living. That doesn't matter to me. I don't care if you're living your life and nobody knows who you are, but you have a damn cool special interest. I want to know you. I want to hear about it. I want to know if it's my special interest too. Is it a new one? I like when that happens. So please, please, please reach out to us, because we are scheduled for the first few months, but we still have the rest of the year to fill. So we would love to have you.
Yeah, especially if you think, there's no way on any podcast someone would want to talk to me about that.
If that's your thought,
yeah.
send me email. Because we really want to push some boundaries. I mean, the whole idea of this is for us to have fun and for us to find the interesting autistic people out there. It's really a really simple principle. So yeah, risk it. We'll risk it, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I have to say about that. What else do we have that we could talk about? I mean, what are you doing for the holidays? Anything exciting?
No, just the usual, spending time with family, which is fine. It's just, I'm glad it's a short period of time.
I think we all are. I think almost everybody, autistic or not, can only handle a certain amount of family time, especially the older you get. So I definitely feel that. But like you and your partner, how do you guys decide whose house, whose family? Is that a big thing in your relationship every year?
Well, because it's just her family lives here in Cleveland. So for me being Jewish, I do the Hanukkah thing, and then she's part Christian and part Jewish. So Christmas has always been a part of her life, a really big part of her life. So I've learned over the last decade about Christmas and all that.
Yeah, I was always jealous I was raised Jewish too, and I was always jealous of the Christmas people. Like, I was just jealous. But then at the same time, I'd always be like, how do these kids believe in Santa? Like, how are you buying this? You're 8 years old, learn something. You know what I mean? Like, that was always my tough part with it. Like, I loved everything about it except for the absolute idiocy of the idea that you should believe that a huge fat man comes down your chimney. Other than that piece, I was all with it because it looked like so much fun.
I think when I was about 8 years old or so, I didn't do this intentionally, but I ruined that for someone who still believed in Santa. And I felt so bad about it. And whenever like someone after that, like I thought they might still believe in Santa, whatever their age were,
Right.
I absolutely said yes.
So funny because I picture my little self, and I know my little 8-year-old self was like, but that's highly illogical. The physics behind the Santa man coming down your right. Like, I was totally like, how can you believe this? Have you not gone outside and played in your garden and like done things with like physics? And so that part was always hard for me, but I was always jealous of the lights. And I kind of, for Hanukkah, you get one present every night, which as a kid, you think is pretty cool until you see what happens on Christmas and they get like 20 presents at one time. And then you're like, oh, well, that's kind of cooler. Because like my family used to do, I don't know if your family did. My family used to do you used to get your small presents in the first few days, and then they would get bigger towards the end. So your one big present was the last night, right?
For me, it never made it to 8 presents. It was like it was like 2 or 3 nights of like real presents. And there was like
a pencil for
like socks or something, you know, like a 7-year-old boy really wants socks, you know, like, I mean, really.
It was always like that, you guys. So just so that you know what it's like to have Hanukkah, it's like, yay, I got this. Yay, I got this. And then it's, oh, a mug. Oh, a sock. Oh, a pencil. Oh, look, a new sharpener for school. Yay. Like
Christmas, I think, is a little more exciting.
Thank you.
Yes.
To make it exciting.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the reasons I am excited about this episode is that, you know, usually on each episode, we always end with asking the question about inside the autistic studio. And since we don't have a guest today, I get to ask you those questions, Beck.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
So are you ready?
I think I'm ready. I always am envious of other people's answers. I hope I have answers. Okay.
I'm sure you will have great answers. So the first question is, what are your pronouns?
She, her, hers.
And what is your preferred stim?
Well, I always have to have something in my hands, and I prefer a rock, which is kind of odd, but I like that it's hard, but also cold. I like that it has temperature and proprioception possibilities. And so that's what I usually love, but I will pick up any small object. Like if I'm doing something, I need to have something in my hand. So even when I watch TV, I have my phone. So it's definitely small object, like.
So do you have like a lot of different rocks in your home just to make?
I have them all over the place. They end up in my car, like cup wells and things like that. Like they end up all over the place. And now that I live in Colorado, the plethora of fun rocks is endless. And so they're everywhere in my house. They're all over. And the special ones go in the case and things like that. It's a rock thing. Yeah, definitely. A lifelong rock thing.
Yeah, rocks are definitely cool.
Yeah.
What is your favorite curse word?
I like fuck. Fuck to me is just the best adjective in the world. I say it all the time. I think shit is the follow-up, but definitely fuck. I think because it can be used in so many different parts of language that you could make whole sentences with it when you're really having a day.
And who do you love and what are you doing about it?
Well, I love my husband. I always love my husband. And I'm doing my best actually recently to make sure that I'm giving him the feedback that I wanted when I first started my business. So like, if you follow me in other things, my husband and I just started a new business. It's really his dream. It's his thing. And so I've been really purposeful about giving him feedback when he has to like beat his own challenges, like executive functioning. He's somebody who struggles with executive functioning in a huge way. And so when he beats those challenges, I'm trying to be really like, you did it. Like the coach in me is trying to be like, yes, positive reinforcement, like really purposefully.
Well, I mean, that feedback I think is so critical when when I was starting my business, I wish I was able to get that feedback from someone who has kind of started their own thing before. That's so important.
Yeah, I think that's where it comes from because I wish I had more of it when I was starting. Yeah. And so I want to make sure that he gets it. But yeah.
And his business, I always see the pictures on social media. It looks, I wish I was in Colorado so I could partake in it. Can tell people a little bit about his business.
Sure. So we opened Tony's Coffee Shack this year in June, and it started out as a food truck for us. It was a business changeover for us. During COVID, we had been training and boarding dogs at the house for people, doing doggy daycare, that kind of thing. And then when COVID came, no one needed us to take care of their dogs anymore. They were all home. So I said, now's your chance. Like, let's chase your dream, and I'd always wanted to cook for a living, and he wanted to cook for people so that he could see them enjoy it, not just me who's like, yay, happy belly, and then that kind of thing. So we did, and we started out in a food truck, and then we got a brick and mortar, and so we make Sammys. We make New York style sandwiches here in Colorado, which is basically just a big old giant sandwich. We make everything big in New York, so we do that, and it's It's really fun. And so when he's pulling off big catering orders like we did this week, that's a lot of executive functioning to figure out how much product you need, how much product for how many people you're serving, remembering all the things, doing all the shopping. And so that was one of those moments where I said, yeah, he needs some reinforcement right here, because that was hard. That was like 3 days of working the biggest challenge in your brain, you know?
Now, the next two are fill in the blank.
Ugh.
You may
He's
be
my hardest. Okay.
you may be neurotypical if
You agree to participate in the social play that you have created.
and you may be autistic if
You are a truth teller.
good one. What's something you want to learn to do or be better at?
So many things. There are just so many things that I can't even begin to think about it. One of my lifelong ones is another language, but I know that that's something that I'll probably never get to. It's just too late for me. But I think, wow, I want to do better in terms of animal rescue. I think it's a part of my life that has sort of taken a back seat because I've been so busy doing all of this other stuff and busy helping the autistic adult humans that I know. But my heart really lies with animals, and I have dreams of building a sanctuary up here. And I would like to sort of really be able to imagine doing that. So I want to save senior Black cats is what I want to save. And so I hope to be able to do that someday.
And what autistic social media account should people be paying attention to?
I feel like this list should be endless.
Yeah.
I follow so many amazing people that I can't even. Of course, I have to say you and me and Spectrum Women and, that kind of stuff. But besides those people that I, know and support, there are some websites out there that I think provide really good information. So if you have to follow a social media account, I really recommend following Thinking Person's Guide to Autism. They share a lot of really important stuff. And I know that they really look through their articles and they don't post crap. And so I really like them. And then kudos to Autism Women and Non-Binary Network. They also post really good news stuff. They really, really vet their stuff well. And I just really, aside from what their platform is, they really provide good information on the spectrum out there. And that's a really hard thing to do. So those two.
What's one thing in your routine you couldn't possibly live without?
My cats, I guess. My dogs too. They're going to get insulted. My animals, I guess. I really can't imagine a day without them. And they are really such a big part of my regulation and my scheduling and my routine and just everything, especially working from home. They're with me all the time. So yeah, my animals for sure. I'd live in like a cardboard box as long as I could have my animals.
And I think I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask anyway. Dog, cat, or must I choose?
This is terrible, but I have 4 dogs, but cat. I mean, it's my spirit animal. It always has been. There is something about the way that cats approach the world and function in it that I just vibe, not as coordinated as them either. But again, I look up to them for it too. But yeah, I definitely am a cat person, hardcore. Yeah.
And last question, what does autistic joy mean to you?
Freely being yourself. So I really just think we are fully joyful when we are allowed to remove all the constraints that society puts upon us. And that's why we do this channel, because when we take those constraints off of people, which you and I purposefully do on this channel, right? We get to see that joy in action, because it's not something that's tangible, that you can't go to the store and buy joy. And so we let people experience it and share it by that. And so when I see people like even Barbie, even when she was talking about autism, you can see her passion about making it different.
Yeah.
And that really visceral passion is what happens for us when we have a special interest. And when people let us talk about it, they see the real us. Right. And that's what autistic joy is to me, when people get to be their real selves.
Well, you did it. You answered all 11 questions.
Yay! I'm so afraid of that NT question all the time because some people give really good answers and I know my answers are not as good as theirs.
Yeah, a lot of great answers to that.
Yeah, I agree. Well, that was super fun. Did you have fun?
I'm so glad we did this.
I'm glad we did this too. I hope you guys enjoyed it out there in the land. That was our kind of 2021 wrap up. I hope you're looking forward to 2022. I am. I know who's coming up in the next few months and it's going to be good. And again, if you want to be on one episode of Info Dump, we have enough interest from enough really cool taboo people who are willing to come on and be themselves. We will go back to 2 a month. I don't care. Whatever we can do. But please email, reach out. We really love that you guys are interested in this stuff and we are too. So please come find us. And thanks for supporting us for the last year. Yay.